Okay, good evening, everybody. It's now 7:30, and it is August 24th, 2023, and I would like to call this evening's Old Bridge, New Jersey Planning Board to order. And if we could please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Danny?
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Planning Board has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by prominently posting the municipal complex and announcement given the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the Home News Tribune, and filing such announcement with the municipal clerk. Do a roll call. Ms. Cannon is absent. Mr. Lenning?
Here.
Mr. Makis, absent. Mr. De Palma? Is absent. Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Renner?
Here.
Mr. Petty?
Here.
Ms. Masella?
Here.
Mr. McIsaac?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
And Chair Marucci.
Here. Okay, first on the agenda are resolutions, and a resolution approving expenditure of funds for DeFrancesco Bateman, Kunstman, Davis, Lear, and Flaum PC's representation of the Planning Board in connection with Knapp Brothers' appeal of zoning ordinance number 2023-10 adoption. And we have to vote on that?
Yes, this is, there's a new litigation that was filed challenging the township's adoption of a zoning ordinance. And in addition to that, they also added the planning board as a defendant, appealing the planning board's determination that the ordinance was not inconsistent with the master plan. So this authorizes me to represent the board. I will advise that there has been insurance against the township's insurance provider. Coverage may be provided through them as well, but this is just to make sure that the board is covered and represented in the litigation.
Okay, anything further?
Not for me.
Nope. from
Was there any
anyone else.
questions?
Okay, any questions from the board members? Okay, and we don't open this to the public.
No, just vote.
All right, so with that, I will ask for a motion
I'll make the motion.
by Mr. Lenning and a second
I'll second it.
by Mr. Renner.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Chair Marucci.
Yes. Okay, I must have an older copy of the agenda, one I brought from home, and Mr. Sordillo just advised me that we skipped over the minutes of May 25th, 2023. So can I have a quick motion for that?
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lauer, and a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. Petty.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Chair Marucci.
Yes. Okay, moving on to completeness waivers. And that's application 20-2023P, 341 Route 34 LLC, Centerstone. And it's a major preliminary and final site plan with C variance.
Attorney here.
So we have an attorney here? Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Michael Lario. Please press the button. It'll light up green. There we go. Thank you. Oh, even better. So again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Michael Lario. I'm an attorney at the firm of Nemat, Davis, and Goldstein. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Ethan Caravani. We're here tonight seeking a completeness determination in connection with an application for site plan approval and C variance relief that has been submitted to this board. Specifically, this property, it is the Centerstone Plaza. What the applicant is proposing are certain upgrades to the existing shopping center. Those include upgrades to the building facade, there's outdoor seating upgrades, there's additional parking that we're proposing, and we're also proposing the introduction of certain EV spaces as required by state law. That's generally a quick overview of what we're proposing. Obviously, we'll be back before the board on a more formal application. The three matters, the three checklist items that we're seeking waivers on tonight are specifically the environmental impact statement, the community impact statement, and the aquifer recharge assessment. We've submitted the waiver request form and the supporting narrative. Ultimately, we are requesting relief from these required checklist items due to the minor nature of what we are proposing here, that ultimately the facade upgrades, the outdoor seating, and the EV parking spaces that we're proposing ultimately aren't going to have the impact from an environmental standpoint, from a community impact standpoint, and from an aquifer recharge standpoint that would necessitate the submission of those checklist items. With me tonight, in case there's any technical questions from any members of the board or the professionals, I do have the project engineer, Mr. Callisto Burton, who can answer any specific questions you have. I'm likewise able to try to answer any questions, but ultimately those are the three specific waiver requests that we're seeking as part of this application.
Okay, does your expert, is he going to make a presentation or just for questions if we have any?
So we're really limited. Obviously, we're not on notice here, so we don't want to get too much into the weeds of the application. Any questions as to justification for those requests, we're happy to speak to that.
Okay, so then I'll hand it off to Vina.
Sure. Board, I just want to remind you, this is the Park Plaza Shopping Center, as you all know. And like I have explained in the waiver letter, the applicant or the shopping center has been in front of the zoning board numerous times for various use variance applications in the past, but they have never come before for a site plan. In fact, the proposed changes are something to upgrade the shopping center. You all have seen that throughout the pandemic, outdoor dining became very popular. The need for electric charging station is now a state law. So the applicant is proposing site modifications and some facade improvement changes and refacing of the existing signs. They are really not, the changes are proposed on already improved surfaces. So I'm very comfortable recommending to the board to waive the environmental impact statement, the community, and the aquifer recharge. It's an already improved site.
Okay, so we're good with all three?
Yes.
Okay, Nicole, anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman. Vina covered it.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board members? Okay, so with that, I'll close this and open it up to the public if there's any questions or comments.
No public on this one.
Oh, there's no public? Okay.
Not on the three.
You know what? And I have that written down Okay, so no public portion. So with that, we'll put it to a vote
I'll make the motion.
by Mr. Lenning and a second. Second. By Mr. Renner.
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Chairman Rucci.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. We look forward to coming back before you with a formal application.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we will move on to our first and only application on the agenda this evening, and that is 04-2023P for Elite Marble and Tiles LLC, and it's a major preliminary and final site plan with C variances.
Evening, members of the board, board professionals. My name is Tim Arch. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of New Jersey for Bob Smith and Associates. I'm here representing Elite Marble and Tile. What we have today is a proposal for a mini warehouse in the EDO zone. Whenever anybody hears warehouse, even mini warehouse, they get concerned, I'm sure. They think Amazon, they think distribution center. We're happy to say that we are not that. This is going to be a mini warehouse for a specific purpose, and that is to house the materials and extra surplus and supplies for Elite Marble and Tile, who has a store and a showroom in Colonia. This is a location that they can then drive their box truck to, load their box truck up, and take it back to the Colonia location. It is going to be owner occupied, and it is as you will hear, it's a extremely low intensity use. You're going to hear that it's going to be in excess, or it's going to be less than a handful of trips a week, probably down to the 1, 2, or 3 trips per week. So the vast majority of time, it's really going to be a static site, and hopefully not a disruption to any of the neighbors in the area. We are asking for several variances. The main variance that we're asking for is related to lot size. There is an existing nonconformity. It is an undersized lot, and a lot of the other relief that we're asking for is really stemming from the fact that it is an undersized lot. So I have 4 witnesses tonight. Just for housekeeping purposes, we did receive 2 reports. We do have the planner and engineering report, which is dated August 21st, 2023. We got that earlier this week. And then we did have a fire marshal report prepared by Matthew Bond, which we got a few weeks prior to that. There were some comments that were in those reports. We're certainly going to address those comments. We weren't really able to revise plans or really address all those through the plans because we just got those comments recently. But we would certainly like to say that we are open to the board's comments and suggestions in any ways that we can potentially amend the site, improve the site, revise the site. We're certainly open to that. We're not necessarily married to anything here as long as it ultimately serves the purpose and is something that the board would be proud to put in their neighborhood. So as I said, I do have 4 witnesses tonight. I have Mr. Bobby Singh, who is the principal and owner of Elite Marble and Tile, who'll talk about the operational aspects. I have John DuPont, who's our civil engineer, who will do an overview of the site and the variances. Mr. Fred Rodriguez, who is our architect, and John Ray, who's our traffic engineer. So unless there's any questions of myself, I would call my first witness, Mr. Bobby Singh.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Well, before you sit down, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Bobby, last name Singh, Singh.
Thank you.
Okay, so Bobby, first of all, is anything that I said in my introduction, was anything incorrect, or did everything I say was that accurate?
Everything was correct.
Okay. If you can, what is your position with Elite Marble and Tile?
I'm the owner.
Okay. So in terms of, what is it that your business does? What is Elite Marble and Tile?
Well, we do retail, and then we also do installations. So we have like two segments, and oftentimes we buy material and we store them, and then we use it on ongoing projects.
Okay, and so your showroom, your retail store is actually located in Colonia, correct?
Colonia, yes.
Okay, and this location here, you're not proposing this to be any sort of retail store, or any sort of place where customers are going to come?
Not at all, no.
Okay, this is strictly for just static storage of your materials? Okay. And you're not proposing to store anything outdoors, correct? This is all just to be
No.
contained within?
It's all indoor.
Okay. And just in addition to that, you're not fabricating anything, you're not assembling anything, it's literally just loading and unloading your stock? Okay. In terms of, I'm going to call it hours of operation, but in terms of the hours that you're going to be using this building, what are those hours going to be?
I would say between 9 to 6.
Okay, so basically, essentially normal business hours. You're not going to do any overnight loading or unloading of any materials?
Not really. I mean, if it is, I mean, it's very seldom, but not really.
Okay, I don't like the not really. You're not going to do any overnight loading or unloading of things?
Not
Okay.
overnight.
How about weekends?
Weekends, yes, on Saturdays.
Okay, but you'll keep it within those daylight hours, you're not going to do anything, because we understand that there's residences that are in that area, and we're appreciative of that, or
Yeah, I
we're
understand.
conscious of that. Okay. In terms of your employees, how many employees are going to be on site when you're doing these loadings and unloadings?
At a time, I would say 2 to 3.
Okay. And is it true that, I guess I'm going to describe it as, they would drive the box truck for the business to the location?
Yeah, most of the time it's going to be like a van or a pickup truck.
Okay. They're not coming there in their personal cars and parking there. This would be that they pick up your van at your Colonial location, drive there, and either load it or unload it? Okay, so in any time at the site, you're not going to really have any passenger cars that are going to be parking there. Maybe one or two if you
If
go there
I'm
for
there
some
or
reason.
yeah.
Okay, but on a regular basis, there really isn't going to be any great need for parking. Let me see. Is it true what I said about 1 to 2, maybe 3 deliveries per week?
Yeah, that's.
Okay. And you're basing that on the what your existing need is at the Colonia store and how often you need to do it presently? Okay. And you don't anticipate that rate is going to change dramatically at any time in the future?
Not at high rate, no.
Okay. So looking at the plan, we'll get into the architecturals a little bit later, but there are two, if you recall, there are two bay doors at the back of the building. Are those the areas that you intend to use as the loading and unloading for the storage? Okay. They aren't designated or striped as loading areas, but there are those two doors. The idea is to pull the vehicle up to there, unload, load, and then be on your way.
Correct.
Okay. We're also providing a dumpster or a trash bin on site. Do you anticipate that there's going to be a great need for waste disposal at the site? Or do you think that it's going to be a relatively low use?
It's going to be relatively low, it's probably once a week.
Okay. And you'll arrange to do that through a private hauler, and they'll come at the normal hours to do the trash pickup? Okay. There's office space in the building. What's the purpose of that office space? Is that to serve the warehouse?
That's for us also, like to, when we, like as owner, like we want to go there, do the inventory,
Okay.
and use it like almost like an office space.
Okay, so that's essentially an accessory use to your mini warehouse use. And I guess I should mention, the total square footage inside is a little bit over 3,000 square feet, correct? Relatively small, and that's appropriate for your uses and your operation?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of landscaping, I know we're proposing a lot of landscaping around those areas. You're certainly open to the idea of working with the town in terms of what those landscaping plants would be, what their preferences would be?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. In addition, there's fencing that's around the property right now. I believe it's fencing from the neighbors. But if the township were to require it or were to ask, would you be open to the possibility of putting up a new fence around the area there? Okay. And you would do that to whatever their specifications are? Okay. I don't believe I have any further direct questions of Mr. Singh at this time.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments for Vina or?
I just have one question, and I know you mentioned that there will be no visitors or anybody coming in, but I have been to similar showrooms wherein sometimes the customers are directed to the storage or the warehouse place where you could go and see the product. Will there be any such instances, or this is going to be purely storage?
No, this will be purely storage because this is more like for us that we're supplying and storing the material.
So out of curiosity, if your retail is in Colonia, why pick Old Bridge for storage?
We're literally like 22 minutes from where
No, I do know that, but I was just curious because there are storage kind of facilities in Colonia, so I was just curious to find out why Old Bridge?
I mean, it's close to highways, it's close to Route 9, and we do a lot of work around the area.
All right.
Easy access.
You stole one of my questions. Okay. Now, the office area that was mentioned, is somebody going to sit there full-time, or is it just periodic use?
No, just periodic.
Okay, and the suppliers that delivered to the building, what size trucks are they going to use? Are they larger suppliers, or are you going to be bringing stuff from Colonia?
Majority of the time, we will be bringing it over. But if a vendor is going there, they normally have like small box trucks.
Like a box truck, nothing large, no tractor
No,
trailers?
no tractor trailers, no.
Okay, will there be any type of manufacturing activity, or any cutting of material? Will there be granite? Will you be manufacturing tops or doing anything outside?
No,
that
we're not
will
storing
disrupt the
slabs
neighborhood?
there, so no cutting.
So it's strictly storage, no physical work is going on inside or outside of the building, no noise, no impact to the residents?
No.
Because it's a very tight, small space, and residents back right up to, and we want to ensure that we're not disrupting their quality of life.
Right.
Okay. And that's it for me. Anybody on the board have any questions? Okay, Mr. Petty?
Okay, you said deliveries on the weekends. Does that include Sunday also?
No, Saturdays. Actually, that's more like a, not delivery, but pickups, because we do work on Saturdays,
Nothing on a Sunday?
nothing on Sunday.
And then my next question, and I'm going to piggyback on what Vina said. I had a kitchen done and trying to get a bathroom done. I've had things done to my house, and the vendor has sent me to a warehouse to go look at marble or anything.
Yeah,
So let me finish. So you telling me that no one will ever go to this site, I find hard to believe, personally. Because I've been sent everywhere to go look at this, go look at that. It's at my storage facility, it's at my warehouse, and I've done it.
I mean, we're not storing slabs over there, because when we have big slabs, then obviously it makes sense.
But you'll be storing tiles and anything else
We're
there.
storing tiles and.
So if I came to your store in Colonia and there was something in Old Bridge, you wouldn't tell me to go to Old Bridge and take a look? You don't have to answer it.
Are you going to be having?
Depends on the scenario. I mean, if it's time constrained, if I really have to, then I might take them with me or one of my,
Mr. Singh, if I could ask a question? If the board were to make a condition, if they were to approve this, a condition that were not to happen, that you are not allowed to use this as a show facility in any way, that this is purely storage for you to pick up items and then take them back to your showroom. So if you need to show anybody, it happens at the showroom. Would you agree to that condition?
yes.
And all your sample boards are in Colonia, there will be no sample boards in the warehouse. So technically, if somebody came down there, they'd have to rip into boxes, which is not effective for you. So.
No, we do stock, like store samples too. And, we ship them around and we give to the customers
So you'll stock them where?
in the warehouse.
Okay, so you will have sample boards in Old Bridge. So that lens then,
Because we change, like based on time of the year, we change the samples, we new ones, we change them, so.
okay, because that lends itself then to people coming there to look at sample boards.
I mean, that's for us, like we bring it, haul it to the showroom and then we bring it back from the showroom to the location.
All right. I would suggest we make it a condition that there's no showroom activity there. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
is there currently an existing location that you use for storage now? Where is your storage now?
I don't have any storage right now. I mean,
Do you store on site?
I store some in the showroom where we, in Colonia. But I don't have any major warehouse or anything,
How many square feet is the showroom in Colonia?
around 1,900 square feet,
Does that include the area,
1,900, yes.
does that include the area that you're using for storage?
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lauer?
Your three employees will be there all the time?
No.
Every day?
only for pickups and deliveries, like
So,
pickups.
so
and-
there'll be times when there will be no
No
employees?
one, yes, no
Okay,
employees.
that's all I got.
In fact, the majority of the time, there will be no employees on site.
Okay, anyone else from the board? Ms. Masala?
Don't mean to beat the storage question to death, but with this, I was almost under the impression that this would be predominantly for staging of materials for jobs that have already have a customer order placed, but I'm almost under the impression now that it is for that, but then in addition, an overflow for maybe you have a popular style
so-
that you want to have more on.
Right, so what we do is like when we buy in bulk too. Like if you're buying from a project that goes for like 6 months, we buy them in advance and we try to stock them.
Gotcha. So there's like an overflow extra space. And my second question was about the dumpster. If there was no fabrication being, to occur at the site, do you mean dumpster, just a receptacle
Mostly
larger
like
than a household?
cardboards,
Or a third
cardboards,
dumpster?
right, mostly like cardboards and broken tiles and, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Because they need the big truck to come in and swap that thing out. So just wondering, do you know about how big is it proposed?
I believe, well, we can get into that, I think, more with the civil engineer, but I believe it's a requirement to have an 8x8 trash receptacle on site, so that's why we're showing it. But again, that's not generated from our operational need.
It'll be more of a courtesy can, more of a smaller.
We would certainly be open to that if the board were to prefer something that was smaller in size.
So cardboard recycled, not, bits of tile that are coming from your fabrication location and just being dumped there?
No,
Yeah, or if you're doing jobs on a customer property, bringing back the waste and throwing it in the
not
dumpster.
not over here, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
How you doing? Will there be a forklift on site?
Yes,
In and
there
out of
will
the warehouse?
Yes.
Okay. And pallet storage, empty pallets, what are you gonna do with those?
It's gonna be, we're gonna keep some pallets, but not outside. They're gonna be interior.
Inside?
Inside.
Okay, thank you.
Will there be room in the driveway, just in case a fire truck has to go on up to your property?
So if I can answer that, we're prepared to address that with Mr. DuPont, our civil engineer. We did get the fire report, and there were some comments in there about requests to widen the drive aisle. We haven't shown that in the plan because we haven't been able to make any revisions, and we wanted to get some feedback from the board in terms of potential alternatives to meet that. So we'll be getting into more of that testimony in a little bit.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, Danny, do we have engineering, any drawings, any site plan? Okay, anybody else?
I have a couple of comments. How you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Very good. So when I listen to your testimony, it sounds like you have a successful business in Colonia, and that's obvious because you're looking to expand and build a warehouse to store your stuff. And I think you're going to be very successful, and I think that this site is going to be too small for you relatively quick. And then I hear testimony that there shouldn't be any unloading on the weekends, but there might be. And that concerns me because the property is surrounded by all residential. And then, there might be 1 or 2 deliveries a week, but as you become more successful, there's going to be more deliveries because you're going to be moving more product.
I mean, if we get to that stage, then we'll expand, if we get to that stage, we'll look for another warehouse or bigger warehouse.
So, just from what I've heard so far, I have a lot of concerns about this, you know, and I'm happy for you that you do need to expand. There's going to be a lot of questions that need to be answered for this site with the size of the building, the offsets and everything like that. But that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, so we will open it now to the public for any questions for this witness. Anybody from the public? Okay, we'll close the public portion. And that concludes the testimony of this witness? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. You can have a seat.
Thank you,
My
Mr. Singh.
next witness is John DuPont.
Hi, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Would you please state your name and spell it for the record?
John P. DuPont, D-U, capital P-O-N-T, JPD Engineering.
Mr. DuPont, if you can please just give the benefit of some of your credentials for the board.
Yes, certainly. So I am a, yeah, I'm gonna go up there. So I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, as well as a professional planner. I've served for the last 28 years as the Planning and Zoning Board Engineer for the Borough of Carteret, as well as the Director of Engineering. I've been in front of boards throughout the state in planning and zoning applications. Had never been to Old Bridge, so this is the first time here, but I think I'm pretty well versed in this.
Okay, accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, you're familiar with the site. You did the engineering plans for the site?
That is correct.
If you can please just take us around, orient us to the site, and if you can touch upon the variant relief that we're requesting as well.
I will, and I'm going to, this is a set of plans that were submitted, that I have out on the easel, exact submissions, and shown up on your board. And I think your staff has put the correct plan up. I just want to flip the one sheet, it'll show pretty much everything I need. I'm going to go to sheet 5-9. That is the landscaping and lighting, it has pretty much everything on that application. So tonight we're talking about block 26020 and lot 7.11. The property is located in your Economic Development Opportunity Zone. The site is currently 0.27 acres, is about 125 by 96 feet, and it's on Englishtown Road, right near the intersection of Gordon Avenue.
Excuse me, so the 125 is the road frontage?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. The applicant tonight is proposing a two-story warehouse. It's about 3,600 square feet. This will include 3,400 square feet of warehousing and 200 square feet of office space. The site is for the client's use only, and we feel that it is a good use. It's a limited use. This will be a limited site. I know you've heard a little bit of introduction up to it. It'll be a lot less intense use than a typical warehouse, and in that area, I think it'll fit nicely. The applicant is proposing on-site parking, landscaping, lighting, sidewalks, et cetera. And if we could just take a look, we'll look at that sheet. Can I just have that scale for a second? I don't have a pointer, I'm using my scale. So again, the building fronts on Englishtown Road. It is 75 feet wide approximately. It's about 31 feet deep, so a relatively shallow building. Has two driveways, one on each side. Driveways access the rear of the building. There's parking towards the rear of the property and loading spaces. The anticipation is that we just tuck the parking behind the building, not seen from the street, a better look. You'll see it's a terrific looking building. We understand the importance of buffering. We put a significant amount of buffering around the entire building closely, as well as the entire parking area in all its driveways. We realize that the site is small and buffering is an important aspect of this application. So a couple of things we'll just touch on, then I want to get into your staff reports that you've given us. But a couple of existing violations. The lot area required in this zone is 1 acre. This property as is 0.27 acres. New variances. It's noted that the loading spaces, there's one required, we have 0. However, we don't have traditional loading spaces with loading docks, but we have 2 loading spaces in the back of the building for a box truck. So that could be considered variance or perhaps not. Landscaping buffer. Requirement is 15 feet between residential use and our property. At our smallest width, we have 7 feet. So we don't meet the width everywhere. Buffer along the right-of-way, along the front. Our building setback is in fact, meets the requirement of 15. However, our buffer is less than 7 feet, 15 feet because of the sidewalk and drainage out front. The building buffer, there's no sidewalks allowed in the front buffer. We are proposing a sidewalk along the front of the property in that buffer. That needs a variance. Parking in the buffer. We do have parking in the rear of the building that is extending into what you'd like to have a 15-foot buffer. We're a little closer to that back line. I will tell you, I think we are we're about 7 feet to the back. So that requires a variance as well. As far as design waivers go, there are a couple that as well that I think we probably could address once we get into some detail. So parking stall width, 10 feet. We're proposing 9. If the board would like to, I'm sure we can make that modification. Parking stall length, we have angled parking along the back. We have 10 feet. 11.5 is required by your ordinance. We can certainly adjust that. The driveway widths on both sides of the building currently proposed are 12-foot wide driveway widths. We were anticipating making just a box truck and or passenger vehicles, keeping it a little smaller. Your ordinance requires 20. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with the fire comments in a minute. And building orientation. Although our building does face Englishtown Road and is forward there, our door, our vestibule, our entrance is towards the rear. So that is a variance. It's a design waiver in your ordinance. You want to have the building face the right of way. So usually when we go into reviews like this, I finish up my testimony, I talk a little about drainage and different things, but with your professional staff, you have a planner and an engineer that did a combined report. It's very detailed, it's very good. I think it might help if we can go through those comments. That might spur some conversation with the board. We may make some improvements to this plan, but if I could do that, there is a report dated August 21st from your engineer and planner. It starts off by talking, the planning comments are first. And the first planning comment, we just want to emphasize that this use is permitted in the EDO zone. So we're not requesting a use variance tonight. Still staying in the parking section, there are parking and loading comments in your planner's letter that we feel we can comply with all of them. We can make the revisions and address each parking comment. Your planner brings up buffers. And we do have several variances for buffering that we're requiring in design waivers. We understand the concerns of buffering. We understand the surrounding of the property, how important this is. We've done significant, well, we feel a significant buffering. We planted the entire perimeter. We're open to suggestions. If the board would want additional buffering, if the board would want additional perhaps fencing, I think our applicant would be very happy to address that. There are sidewalks. There are 2 sidewalks to be discussed. First, there's a sidewalk along the front of Englishtown Road, right along the front. The width of that sidewalk is a concern of your planner. We'll defer to the county. That's in the county right away. It's a county road. So wherever the county says on the width, we'll certainly comply with that. The second one is right along the front of the building. There's a second sidewalk right adjacent to it. And that width is the sidewalk's in a buffer, and then the width of it is a little smaller than perhaps the township would like. We can leave that sidewalk there. We thought it was a nice way to make the building look like it's fronting that way, easy access, but we're up to suggestions if a modification would be made. There was discussion about the trash enclosure. There is in the rear of the property a proposed 8x8 trash enclosure fully screened in the back. So I think that you can satisfy the planner on that. The signage has was a comment. There's no proposed signage at this point, but we understand that if signage is proposed, or later, either has to meet the ordinance or they're coming back here. So the applicant agrees to that. Lighting, the applicant can address all lighting concerns. We are lighting the parking lot, we are shielding the light on the parking lot, and we're having no spillage on surrounding properties. And there's a couple of miscellaneous comments in there, in the planner's comments, that we feel we can comply with everyone. Now, from an engineering standpoint, the first comment that comes up is the fire access. So we had a fire report too from your fire marshal, Mr. Matthew Bond. And initially, the comment was that they want to make sure we provide access around the building for your fire apparatus. In such a small site, it was difficult. I took the liberty of calling your fire marshal. We spoke on the phone twice, and what was suggested, and was not in writing yet, but what was suggested was if we could make one aisle 20 feet wide. I kind of thought of, I'm no fireman by any means, but I was thinking this building this small would almost be like you'd pull on Englishtown Road, fight the fire from the road. It's almost the depth of a house. It's not really that big. But Mr. Bond was suggesting making one of the driveway widths 20 feet wide. So we're okay with that. That would adjust the buffers for sure. But I think we're going to talk about that more, and we'll get back to that. Grading and drainage comments, we can comply with every comment from the engineering report. Traffic circulation, we have a traffic expert that's going to testify to all those comments. And stormwater, a couple comments about the pavement. We're proposing porous pavement in the back. So the new stormwater regulations in New Jersey have requirements, have details, have maintenance manuals, have cross-sections that we need to show. Completely agree with your engineer on all those points. We can comply. We'll provide the soil testing that's required. We'll provide the maintenance manual for that. It's not a problem at all. Sorry, I think there's one more page. There was more than that. That page is stuck. There is landscaping and lighting comments and utility plan comments. We feel we can comply with those comments as well. And construction details, no issues with those comments, as well as outside agencies. So I don't know if you wanted to have a little discussion on that fire truck apparatus, but if there's any suggestions or.
Yeah, one thing I want to ask before we get to questions, John, is that just to be sure, we're open to potential, or I should note that the requirement for parking is only 2 in this site, and we're showing more parking spaces than what is required. Is that something that we would be willing to dial back on potentially in order to achieve more buffering or achieve more circulation?
Absolutely. We do show 5 spaces in the back, 4 standard, 1 handicap accessible space, and we could clearly reduce that to 2. I mean, the requirement is 2 in the zone. We could put 2 if the board would like, or even 3. We'd be up for that.
I would welcome any comments from the board or any design revisions. As I said, we're not married to anything necessarily. We want to make sure that the board is comfortable with our proposal, and so we really welcome a collaborative experience here. So Mr. DuPont is ready for questions.
Okay, Vina or Nicole, anything?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I think I want to start with, I guess on the engineering comments, I just want to reiterate, grading and drainage, you said you're going to do it all. You can comply with all of it.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, traffic and circulation, I'm going to hold off. But the drive aisle is 12 feet wide. So I know I heard that there was going to be some sort of discussion on, fire code requires a minimum 20 feet wide.
That's right. And your fire marshal
Yes?
stated that he'd like to have one of those driveway aisles 20 feet wide.
One?
At least one. Now, he didn't put it in writing, but we talked about it. We even suggested perhaps we just have one driveway aisle. His fire apparatus is not going to go around this building on this small lot. And he understands that, and I think we came to an agreement on he needed to go around the entire building. but he wanted to get on one side and the front.
Who did you talk to?
Matthew Bond, your fire marshal. And again,
Matthew Bond took over for Fire Marshal Hart, as everybody's aware. And certainly he's new to the review of site plans, but this is a fire code requirement.
and
So-
I don't want to say that he didn't commit to us.
Okay.
We had a discussion.
Right. Okay, so I just want to put on the record that 20 feet is by fire code requirement for the circular drive around the building, a minimum.
Okay.
You're now a commercial use, and so I just want to put that on the record.
So what you're saying, Nicole, is 20 feet on both sides. It needs to be all the way around the building.
Right, and the apparatus, and that's why I think one of the comments that I had was, provide me the turning template, because irregardless
That's right.
of the fire apparatus, you have the trash enclosure. Like, we need to see that a garbage truck can get in there successfully and pick up the garbage, and then we need to see that the apparatus can get in there and circulate this driveway.
So we could certainly put a turning radius on, and we would do that. Would you be opposed to having just one driveway then? If we made it 20-foot wide, one access driveway, and eliminated the second one?
Eliminate the second one.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think I want to hear from the traffic consultant, so to see what he has to say about circulation. I'm going to save that comment for later. I did look at the stormwater management report. I mean, it was lacking in that you're proposing a pervious pavement system, but you don't discuss it at all in that report. So I think we wanted to see, one, what was the detail on it, and two, what is the maintenance manual associated with it? Because it's not a traditional way to go, and I think, the applicant needs that benefit to see what is his maintenance responsibilities going forward on that pervious pavement.
I agree, and we will provide that manual.
I'm taking a look at your lighting plan now, because there are 2 lights that are in the parking lot, and then the other ones are wall mounted onto the building. When I look at your Isolux pattern that you have on the bottom of the page, and I look at the pattern provided on the plan itself, I don't see the same pattern. Now, my eyes are getting old, but what I like to see is a foot candle reading on the plans,
You want a point by point?
point by point.
can
And
do
then
that.
this way, I could tell whether you're meeting the min to average, the average foot candle for the pavement area itself, and then also for the pedestrian ways that are on there. And then obviously, we can't have spillage onto the residential properties off the property line. And I notice, especially at the rear of the property, I'm not sure if you're banking on these arborvitaes on blocking, but the Isolux pattern stops at the curb line.
We
So,
will definitely have cutoffs in the back of that, and I will confirm that pattern.
okay. I'm going to save the rest for the traffic consultant. And from what I understand, everything else in this report, other than what I've discussed so far, and traffic and circulation can be accomplished, is what you're saying.
In traffic and circulation,
Not in traffic, with the
Oh,
exception.
aside from that.
Yeah.
yes, I think the biggest thing I thought from an engineering standpoint was the access discussion in the fire lane. I think everything else we could address.
Okay.
Do you have a planner who will be testifying?
Mr. Dupont is also our planner. In all candor, we did not necessarily expect that we would get to a vote tonight, since we are asking for feedback, and we are asking for the opportunity to potentially take that feedback, make revisions, and, if there was any public comment, we wanted to incorporate that as well. My intent was to get through the majority of our testimony, save the planning testimony for the end, because obviously if any variances change, or if any variances are eliminated, that would potentially change the planning testimony. But quite frankly, again, we only got the reports earlier this week, so we wanted to use this as more of a work session, not just adjourn and miss the hearing. Use this as a work session to be able to come back and hopefully address any comments that you have. That's why we're asking for, obviously, all this feedback tonight.
Sure.
Shouldn't that have all been done on a review process?
That's what Nicole and I were discussing. We should have had a meeting prior to the public hearing when there were so many loose end items, but I think now since we are here, let's
We
just.
would have welcomed that. As I said, we just got the report on Monday.
That's
so we
usually
would've welcomed
how
that.
we do. I was expecting that after you received the review memo, you would have asked for a meeting. But anyways, since we're here, I do not want to wait for the planning testimony, because the comment I want to make is planning related. And I think it's important to bring it up now, because I'm hearing that the fire marshal has suggested the 20-foot driveway, right? You're already asking for a variance from the buffer. This is a non-residential use next to the residential use. Unless you shrink the building, the driveway is going to exacerbate the buffer variance that you're asking. So I'm trying to visualize here, your option is to shrink the building. If you shrink the building, does it make sense? Because the site is already undersized. The township, the EDO 1 requires a 1 acre parcel. And the reason we have the 1 acre parcel with 0.3 FAR and the buffer requirement is EDO 1 definitely abuts residential zone throughout the township. And we wanted to ensure that there is adequate buffer between a non-residential use and a residential use. Now, you do comply with the FAR, otherwise you would have been in front of a different board. But I think when your adjacent uses on all three sides are residential, right, the buffers are critical. And how much can you encroach into those required buffers, right, is a critical question. When you add the 20-foot driveway, it is going to shrink from 7 feet. It might go down even further, or you might not even have a buffer on one side. I know that the neighboring property, there have been complaints already because of some sort of home-based business or some sort of activity in their backyard. So when this type of a use comes in, the lot is undersized. You do not have.
Way undersized.
Yes, it's like literally 1/4 of what the code requires. You have buffer variances on all sides. I don't know if the site is really suitable, and that is where your testimony as a planner comes into play to convince the board that in spite of these variances or inadequacies, the site is suitable. Because I know typically I would have asked that only if you were in front of a zoning board defending a D variance, right? But in this case, I think it's critical because the use is permitted in the EDO 1 zone. However, if you look at the purpose of the EDO 1 zone, right, and all the design standards that are leading to the ordinance, they are mostly catered for a use that directly caters to the neighboring residences. So like a retail store or a deli where you can walk in, not for a storage facility like that, but it is doable if it was a larger lot and you had adequate buffers on all sides. So that will be something important, that would be an important part of your testimony when you come in as a planner, and I will be curious to see how you treat how you design the 20-foot driveway and how it impacts the building.
One of the things that, if I could just add to that, is one of the potential alternatives that we had discussed was, again, if we are expanding one of the drive aisles to 20 feet, eliminating the other drive aisle, that could possibly accommodate moving the building over on the site a bit more towards, I believe the residence that's on the right, if you look at the plan, is actually a residence that has the home, I think that's the one that you were referring to, that has the home business, because there is what appears to be a business use out of that, and there is a driveway directly next to our lot, and the house is actually on the other side of the lot. So one of the things that we were potentially considering is shifting the building more to that, potentially reducing the buffer slightly, but actually the buffer, the landscaped buffer would actually grow, because if you eliminated that 20-foot aisle, or if you eliminated the 12-foot aisle on the side, moved the building over a little bit, you could probably achieve a 10-foot landscaped buffer on that side, which is even better than what we're showing now, and then that would, you could expand the other side to 20 feet and still provide additional landscape buffering on the residential side. Obviously, I'm no engineer, I'm no architect. That was just something that I was thinking of. That's why we wanted to get some feedback with this, because now again, that would likely put the building into potentially off the side yard setback. But if the board were more inclined to say, if we provide more of a landscaped buffer, that a slight increase into that side setback might be more palatable than what we're showing right now. So again, that's why we're asking for everybody to provide feedback and see if this is something that the board can ultimately get behind and approve. Because we're conscious of the fact that it is an undersized lot. Nobody is saying that it's not. Nobody is trying to say that this does not present some difficult planning and land use issues. But that's what land use boards are for, and that's what professionals are for, is to try to work through those issues. And again, we're coming to you in a spirit of collaboration to see if there's some way that we can do this to make it work to your satisfaction. And to the neighbor's satisfaction, although I don't see any neighbors here tonight.
I mean, I don't know, I would be concerned if the building was half or two-thirds the size that it is now. I'd still be concerned. You know, that's, to use the old analogy, it's like putting 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound sack.
I've heard one similar to that.
Yeah, I'm cleaning it up a little bit. It's tight, and I would be ultra concerned if that building is shifted and it becomes one drive. The site, the traffic in the back, who's, got to make K-turns to get out, it would be a logistical nightmare with only one entrance and exit. It's tough any way you look at it.
Mr. Dupont, did I hear right that you would comply with the parking comments that were in the planning review memo? Because I think you are asking for a waiver from the parking stall width and the stall length, correct? So you would comply?
I could comply with that. And we would probably, if here from the board, we'd probably reduce the number of parking spaces too. So we could comply with the size easily and take off some spaces.
Because I feel by complying with the parking stall sizes, you might again exacerbate the buffer requirement, but you'll have to design it, you'll have to put it on paper and see.
And if I went to 2 spaces as required, the buffer would increase. I'd make them parallel spaces instead of angled. It would be better. I just figured it, initial design was to get a couple extra spaces in there, just to have it. Figured it was pretty well buffered, but we could do that.
And before you return back to the board, there were a couple of inconsistencies among the reports, and we expect that to be
So
cleaned
the
out.
Office and, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You said parallel spaces or perpendicular? If you made it perpendicular?
I'm sorry, perpendicular. No, parallel. I would, if I did a couple, if I.
Oh, okay,
exactly.
parallel to the curb line,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Because if I only needed 2, it makes it really pretty simple, that portion of it.
My concern with the double driveway is that you don't have enough frontage per ordinance. So it's that we would be allowing a double driveway with a reduced width, and it doesn't meet the requirements for your proximity to the intersection with Gordon Avenue. So you're supposed to have a 100-foot minimum offset from either of those driveways, and you don't meet that. Plus, I don't know, have you gone to the county?
We have a pending application with the county, but they have not provided comments yet to it.
Okay, because I know that they would have issues with the driveway and the movements out of the driveway based on the existing striping on County Route 527. So, it seems, I want to say premature to be here, without knowing their comments, without sort of meeting with the professionals, without looking at what can be done on the site. Like, even if you moved the driveway to be a true 4-way intersection with Gordon Avenue across the way, you're now bifurcating the lot, which is undersized to begin with, and you're limiting your ability to size a building probably adequate enough for the use. And then that building is going to shift closer to either the resident on the south side or the resident on the north side. So I don't know I think one of the comments that you had said, initially when you started reviewing the memo was when you got to, Vina's initial start, and you started talking about the minimum lot area, I heard that the property is nicely suited, I think I wrote it down, nicely suited for the use, and I'm not sure I see that it's nicely suited.
I think that comment was from the fact that if you drive around a neighborhood, you see home-based businesses all around this area, right? The neighbor on the right side, north side, home-based business. 2 doors down, there's a house with a HVAC, trucks in it. So it seems like a very mixed-use area where this small oh my God, Marble, sorry about that.
Yep.
I turned off. Was not there. A marble company for storage, very low use, would probably be a good fit.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that those are existing uses, and certainly, I don't want to those are existing uses, and the idea of the EDO zone was to make sure that the proposed uses that come in are suited with the vision of what the township is trying to accomplish, right? And those existing uses, I think Vina, even in her, initial review of the architectural, said that even the architectural wasn't suited with the neighboring properties. Just things to think about, because, I think it's certainly hard to look at an application that doesn't seem to fit on a property, and try and see how we can make it fit. I just don't think that the size of the property is adequate enough to make this work especially with the intersection across the street.
I think, and Nicole, maybe before you even come back to the board, maybe have a pre-app with the county, because they will definitely have some strong comments which will influence your design. So it may make sense to coordinate a pre-app with them and see what they have to say. We'll be happy to join on that call if you schedule that.
Yeah, we would certainly welcome that. We certainly plan to have a pre-application meeting with the county. Again, we're waiting for their comments to come back and to schedule that meeting. But we would welcome you being part of that as well.
Because here's the thing, right? This EDO1 zone or the EDO1 zone ordinance was crafted in the recent years. It was only written, I think, in 2015. And the reason behind that was whether it is State Highway 34 or English Town Road, specifically English Town Road, it was meant to be like neighborhood commercial type of uses. The building that is proposed, right, it's a warehouse type of building, and I was very reluctant, or I struggled a lot when I was writing what I was writing, because to me, this type of use I have seen in the SD zone in the township, where if you go on Old Waterworks Road, Cheesequake Road, that's where you see this type of a use. But when it's English Town Road, my vision was buildings that, because if you notice, there is a minimum front yard and a maximum front yard. That you don't see that typically in all the zones. But for this one, we wanted the buildings to be closer. We didn't want to have parking in front, which you address, but at the same time, the whole purpose of having the buildings closer was to make it more walkable, to make it more pedestrian friendly. This type of use doesn't really encourage that walkability or that neighborhood type of feeling. I did look at uses in that section of the neighborhood, and there's a liquor store. There are uses that are that cater directly to the residences there or serve the neighborhood. And that is why my first question was, if you have the retail showroom in Colonia, why locate the storage facility in Old Bridge on English Town Road, right? So things for you to revisit, look at. I think having a pre-app with the county will be helpful. Before you even come to the board, Nicole and I will be happy to meet with you again, or even join you at the pre-app meeting with the county, so that we all can, share our opinion on the project as well.
And again, we certainly appreciate that, and we want to take you up on that. Just so that the board is aware, we we did adjourn the last meeting that we were scheduled for, which was last month's meeting, and we did request to have reports and to have feedback on this, and unfortunately, we did not get these until earlier this week. And we just did not want to adjourn again and continue pushing this back without any comments. But again, we are more than happy to have, technical meetings, technical review committee meetings, and to include everybody in that, so.
Yeah, it's my opinion, and I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, but it's a little premature to be in front of us tonight. And, I think we should, is this something we should adjourn and take up in a subsequent meeting?
Unless you have any specific questions for Nicole or me,
If I can just ask my professionals, I think from what I understand, especially with the county pre-app meeting, I think it might be premature to have any sort of traffic testimony because that might all change, all be revised. So I don't think the traffic engineer would need to testify as of right now, Mr. Ray. No. And then we also have our architect, Mr. Rodriguez. I would ask him, is there anything that you feel is necessary to add tonight, or do you think it makes more sense to wait? And of course, we wouldn't be doing planning testimony tonight. So, I would certainly agree. I think adjourning for tonight, taking that feedback, if we can, I'll set up a pre-app meeting with the county and involve you. Is there any other additional meetings that we can take part in, or that we can schedule for you?
I think we start with the county because there's an application that was before, not this board, the other board, our zoning board, and they had two existing driveway openings on 527, and the county was giving them an extremely hard time. I don't think that they're going to proceed, so I just want to see what the county has to say on this application. Better to meet with them first, include us on the meeting, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. We will certainly make that happen. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm imagining that we're probably going to have to renotice because there might be some changes, so I don't think we need to have any date certain.
You read my mind. That was going to be my question to you. And I think, while it's going to be renoticed, I think just for the public's, if anyone's here is the public on this application, we haven't closed the testimony from the engineer. That's why it hasn't been opened up to the public. You will have an opportunity to do so when this gets continued, but it sounds like it's going to be renoticed for the next meeting when this continues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's.
So then,
Yeah, we don't have nothing on this because it's still open.
okay, with this meeting still being open, we're going to bring the meeting to a close, and I just have to put out for any final public comments for the entire meeting. Okay, and then we'll close the public comment and a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I did ask if we could have a quick executive session this evening to talk about the RD litigation. So it just listed it here. But if we can,
See, I got a bad, the old agenda.
I'm just making a note. Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, if we could have a motion from a member of the board to move into executive session to discuss the RD management litigation.
I'll make the motion.
Make a motion by Mr. Renner, and a second
I'll second.
by Mr. Lenny.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma? Or Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Chair Marucci?
Yes. for a motion to adjourn the regular session.
I'll move it.
By Mr. Lenning, second.
I'll second.
By Mr. Petty.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nicole, Vina?
Thank you, everybody.